You must have heard the committee.
Yeah. That didn't stop the clip yesterday, so
Yeah.
anyway, I appreciate it.
Call to order the Economic Development Committee. Today is August 30th. Common Council Member Katie Lepard-Shu
Hello.
and Common Council Member Emily Falco.
Hello.
The minutes were provided to you, Jay. Were there any corrections needed?
No, not that I saw.
That's provided. Thank you, Claire. All right, so previously in July, we had talked about the connection with Kushtown All-Star Village and the city of Oleana. Mayor Drenick has been taking the lead with the conversations between the two organizations. Since our last meeting, is there any new developments?
No, although we did have the, forgot what her title is,
Wait, she's
for
a
marketing director, is she?
director of business operations?
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
From Cooperstown, also the Cooperstown All-Star Village. Forgive the mess, I had COVID last week, and I'm just observing the protocols this week, but I'm used to it, so. But in any case, so she was a member of the marketing committee, which has met, so there's value in that for sure. I've got a phone call, or rather an email shot to Rick Abbott a little bit earlier today, looking to see if we can get together sometime in the next week or so. It just kind of doubles down on his offer and see if we can get a little bit more clarity around things like, he said, you weren't part of that meeting, he said that if you have a brochure, not multiple pages of menus or whatever, but if you have a brochure, we will include that in our package, which is a big deal, because they all do that.
I'm sorry, who's your captain?
Oh, I'm sorry, Cooperstown All-Star Village, the CEO.
That's right. Yeah, thank you.
In any case, so he said, if you have material, we will put it in the hands of our people. He also said, just to reiterate, that if you would like to set up a tent, a 10 by 10 on opening day, which we heard from, what's her name? What was her name? In our press meeting? You'll get it. Anyway, she was saying that it's a stress creator for them, this 6-day week that rolls, 6 days with no day off. It's kind of a logistical nightmare, but apparently they are doubling down on that. Oh, they are going to do that and continue with that because they picked up an extra week. And, that's a serious, that point. So they're going to do it. And with that, that means that the opening day is going to move every single week. So Tuesday this week is following Monday next week.
Ooh, that's so tricky.
It is, and it's very difficult. This is a sidebar, but it's very difficult for people to be hired to clean. The baseball.
It's the team that are going to get out, so.
I think in general, businesses sort of count on that rhythm.
Right, and then we have the third piece that he offered us, which is that if we have a couple of nights that the city is essentially open for business with shopping, with some identifiable entertainment, could be the Outlaws, could be more, and the restaurants obviously are open, then they will make a concerted effort to send their people to us on those nights. I would propose that those nights might more likely be Thursday and Friday, independent of their schedule, just because you couldn't possibly follow their schedule. As it is, it's going to be impossible or difficult to bring merchants on to the idea of being open till 8 o'clock a couple nights a week. It's obviously in their best interest. But I'm push earlier with these folks, so I understand that it would be easy. So anyway, so that's what we know, and what I want to find out from him specifically next time I get together with him, is there Is there anything more to it? Are there requirements in terms of size, for instance, of something that we might provide them in terms of promotional material? Is there an expectation of time for a 10 by 10 pop-up? You know, is it what time during the day until what time during the day? So that, you know, that can be kind of determined. Because there are always moving parts that, quite honestly, if we don't have a handle on them.
Can I mention one other thing too with regard to the All-Star Village, is that I have seen that a lot of people are suggesting for families to stay in that campground that's like up on the hill.
Yeah.
And I would love to see, is that what it's called? I would love to see some, I know we have some rentals in the city. I mean, that's just a fact, whether or not they're, you know, sort of licensed to do that or not. I would love to see us be able to, I don't know, get behind those somehow. I don't know that that's necessarily a city thing, but thinking about how can we get those families to stay within the city rather than immediately adjacent to the camp.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm on the same page with you on that.
Okay. I mean,
Just because the housing stock is going to be more useful to us if it's year-round for folks.
absolutely.
So
But I'm
it's
saying
a
that,
conversation to be had.
you know, that there are houses that are out there. There was one across the street from me and one 2 doors down from me, and, you know, they're out there and they're being utilized, and I would rather see people,
And those are college houses?
their college houses during the year,
Yeah.
the short-term rentals during the summer.
And that is kind of
I think you were leaning towards families that are actually moving out of their houses and renting for the 13 weeks. And that's one thing, Mark, I wanted to ask you about. Are they changing their schedule for next year? Kutztown All-Star Village?
I'll find out, you know, more. I just learned a little while ago in this marketing meeting that they were doubling down on the 6 to 8 weeks. So I'll find out more from him, you know, what the specifics of what the schedule is, the length of it. You know, I didn't know if they were still going. They wrapped up last week.
They wrapped up last week.
Yeah, and so, you know,
They've already had their employee picnic.
Anyway, but I'll find out. Now, bottom line is, I will find out when I can find out, so that we're operating, you know, with some based on fact, and then build off that as foundation. So that's what
I love the idea of an Oneonta night, and even maybe that kind of being what the brochure is focused on. And I think like a Thursday night, like you could definitely, Friday and Saturday, or, you know, even Saturday, but Friday and Saturday, I feel like, at least at Roots, like, you know, those are usually pretty dependable nights where we get a, you know.
Thursday, Thursday has a lot of history.
Thursday would be a really great night, you know, and I feel like it would be nice to engage like our own community too. Only on a night, you know.
So even if you just did one day, they said too, but even if you just did one day.
Just one day,
Especially with that.
people stay open till 9, you know, at least 9 o'clock, the stores stay open.
Too, on Friday and Saturday, they're sort of competing with other, you know, bands and things like, you know, there people are more likely to play Saturday nights. You are probably more likely to capture people on Thursday.
I mean, I can certainly like start by just reaching out to our local business owners and being like, just in anticipation, you know, for next baseball season, how do you?
Yeah, I mean, are we thinking about this? I know that there's been some back and forth with regard to like the Saturday street closures. Are we thinking about this, maybe instead of those?
Sure. I don't, you know, I think the street closures, personally, I think they were like a really great and amazing thing for when we were in COVID to like, you know, get us through that. And while I like the idea of it, I don't know that it has been profitable for everybody. I know the basketball tournament was not very, it kind of hurt our business because a lot of people just got pizza and sat on the street and no one, they were just there to watch the basketball game, not to go shopping and stuff like that. I mean, I certainly think that street closures are cool, you know, especially if there's like a real purpose for it, you know, like I'm really excited about the City of the Hills Art Fest coming up. I think that's going to be a really great thing. But I do like the idea of like, you know, Oneonta night, to, and then, like you're saying, like get some kind of shuttle to like get people into Ominata.
So from your perspective right now, in your section of the city that you are the, what do you think the feedback will be from the downtown businesses about being open until 9 p.m. on Thursday night? Because Mark's absolutely right. I mean, we have a long history of being open on Thursday night.
I think a lot of businesses already are open on Thursdays, and I don't.
That is better. But even 8 o'clock would be,
But even 8 o'clock.
Reasonable expectation. But there are a few. Teresa's is going to be open. Serenity is going to be open. Green Toad will be open. The folks, honestly, the folks that are making a decent living are the ones that, surprise, are there for the holidays and are there in the meetings, But it's an education piece.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do we convince, since we're limited to how many businesses and types of businesses that we have in our small downtown, how do we convince them to stay open until 9 p.m.?
Well, I think it would be that we, like the city is going to be advertising for people to come and dine and shop, and maybe you have like special coupons, or if you're like from outside of Oneonta, you get like a little discount, or a store, or I don't know, like some kind of like special that we offer that you couple with it to entice people to come on this specific day.
The thing is, if I can,
Yeah, please.
This is only 3 people, right? And not counting me, right? There's 3 people in this community. And it's not reasonable to expect that you're going to walk around. You're going to get people signed up to do coupons. You're going to get people signed up to do this, that, and whatever it may be. I think, one of the things that we've always looked at with the Community Wellness Committee, and it's, I think, got some value. Set up a small subcommittee of ad hoc of, some downtown merchants that are invested in the process, and let them do the work at your direction. It's their businesses.
Right, the marketing committee.
Well, I don't know, the marketing committee is pretty fast.
Yeah.
Because they're really focused on recruitment.
In terms of like people moving here. In terms of people moving here.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the very same concept, the very same conceit could be, targeted toward, we're going to be doing per this committee.
This is something for DO.
They're not currently set up to succeed to do that.
I could see it working with like, just like a couple people, like, there are some people that miss like having, there used to be the Main Street in Oneonta, like that miss having that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know, I hesitate to make it too downtown focused, you want to promote all of Oneonta, but I
With
think,
your direction, I can reach out to a handful of people and set up an ad hoc that's reportable, that puts to you, that implements your strategy. If your strategy is that Oneonta winds up marketing itself to the baseball camp on a Thursday night, and we have 3 people, 4 people invested in that being a success, that they wind up doing that work, you can't be expected to do that work.
right. So maybe we could have, like, get like some names of people and have them to our next meeting to begin that discussion, like with the 3 of us, rather
Or I
than.
can, even if you'd like, I can reach out to a few people and, that you tell me what you want me to do, I guess what I'm saying.
Sure, yeah, if you have some people in mind.
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
But I just know that, there's a lot to ask 3 people to do.
I think, and I feel like it would be more successful if the business owners kind of, like, it's like, this is, kind of give them the task and have them strategize of how, and have them strategize of how they want to.
That's fine. You tell me.
Yeah, and if they say, this idea, we don't want to do it, well then.
There's other businesses that are not on Main Street that would like to reap this benefit. You're right. But if the crowd is headed to downtown Oneonta via the Kurshan also goes, then I think they should have their own group together. So if that's
And that might be like the beginning foundings of an eventual bid or something like that, to just get people, instead of starting with something so overwhelming, it's like, let's just focus on how we can get these baseball people to come here night a week, talk amongst yourselves, put together, I mean, I'm happy to help as I can, but, have them put together what kind of things they want to offer. And because I do think it would be a nice thing to market to our entire community, into communities outside of us, like Delhi has like, the Delhi like this and that, they have like all these like little events and so cool. I was just there recently, like taking all these pictures, I'm like, oh, I love Delhi, I never thought I would say that.
I think, it's definitely drawing on our history, which is nice, so there's a bit of sort of community support for that, I think. That's latent, that we could pull back. This sort of idea of like Thursday night, like throw your kids in the car, come to downtown, because we're gonna be open late.
Right.
I mean, especially, I don't know, I think, I'm just trying to think about, I love the idea of, the downtown businesses. I feel like all of our conversations around bolstering downtown require them to foster a level of partnership that eventually leads us to kind of come back to, like, maybe they should form a bid, huh? And I know that that's not a place to really say, but I think that, us having these conversations organically that sort of lead there, it is good in terms of building, the idea of it. But, thinking about how DO could support it, maybe that's when they do their, they used to do like a movie for kids. I mean, we did a movie for kids. Maybe we could do that in the park to coordinate with that, on every Thursday night, because we have the summer concert series and the limited budget. Yeah, but, thinking about how if we're going to rally behind this, it's going to be only on a night. Like you said, having an event, having something, being really thoughtful about what we're putting on, who's coming, and what they're going to want to do.
It's not sort of just downtown central.
Right. I honestly, I can't get past the fact that I thought that's what the deal was about, was marketing downtown Miami.
And they've kind of moved off of that, unfortunately. But generally speaking, getting back to what Rick Abbott's point was that bringing people into Oneonta, we're thinking about Oneonta as a 4-block footprint, but in fact, Oneonta is Newton Park. Oneonta is, River Street. Oneonta is, all of these other kind of connective areas to downtown. And so if you've got movies in the park, if you've got concerts in the park, if you've got baseball in the park, if you've got things going on Main Street, if the shops are open, if you've got restaurants that are, offering special that night. I was in Glens Falls, I think it was, and on, I think it's Wednesday night, you go, it's $5, $5, and you go down the block and you get a tapas at, kind of a sampler from every restaurant.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, so, right.
I would do that.
So, it's an idea of, only not just this 4-block footprint. And as far as Cooperstown All-Star Village is concerned, they send their kids up to Cooperstown the day after they come in, right? So, and the parents, depending on where you are in that week, the parents are already going stir crazy for a couple, 3 days. Typically not the male parents, but the mothers and the kids, and they're just looking for anything to do. And so giving them something that, kind of gives them all of what Oneonta has to offer and doesn't shut it down at 5 o'clock at night.
So thinking of ways that the city could support this, other than the promotional materials distribution, do you think that we could make some sort of, like, is the idea that the All-Star Village would provide the shuttle?
There's no likelihood of a shuttle. Now, we thought that was going to be something that they'd be excited about. We even looked at an actual shuttle, trolley. But they said they don't have cars.
Yeah.
They're out of time. Where are they going to leave their car and be picking up at the hotel?
They're driving their cars from California.
Right.
We specifically asked about that, saying, are they flying in? And they're like, no, they drive.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, my thought is like,
madness.
yeah, it doesn't look right.
There you go.
There
You see,
I see the lights.
and, you know, Cooperstown bus, you know.
Yeah, it's,
And then you go to Cooperstown, go home.
Well, it might be cheaper, because if you can get 3 or 4 kids in a car versus buying
Yeah, yeah.
tickets. But, you know, my thought was, if we're asking people to go, you know, here, there, and elsewhere and check out the places in our city, you know, maybe we come up with, in our promotional materials, a little map that says X, Y, Z. And if there was a shuttle, my thought was, is there CHIPS funding? Can we get, or not CHIPS funding, wait, yeah, what's the?
Awards?
No, that's not what I'm thinking of. For like OPT, Enterprise Fund. Are there enterprise funds to run one route, one night a week, to get people from the All-Star Village to all these places around town, just one route, one night a week?
Or they just do it like on the hour for a
And
few
they-
hours
yeah,
or something.
Totally, and it just buses you from one place to the next, or right back, you know, if that's what you
It
wanted.
would have to be paid for, because we thought, you know, perhaps that the All-Star Village would think that that's something they couldn't pay for. And after we got done laughing,
you know, their advantage.
but it's all.
Sure, it's our advantage. Well, it is in their advantage, I think. Providing a week of, you know, robust activities and entertainment is a lot better than their old strategy of stay on premise and try to find 5 things that you want to eat off our menu at our one
Yeah,
restaurant.
but that's their business plan.
Maybe.
Honestly.
Maybe.
No, it is.
But you know, I think there's some advantage there for them. But I think also, you know, I continually hear about how we have, and I'm pulling this out of anecdotal, you know, conversations and not any actual funding numbers, but my thought is, it sounds like it would be feasible for the city to fund one additional route 1 day a week for 4 hours. You know what I mean? From 4 to 8:30, 1.5 hours.
So if Mark and Emily give us the names of the business owners that they think would be willing to participate in this, then we can start reaching out as a committee. We'll reach out as a committee to these business owners and start having a conversation with them, and that'll be the task, putting that group together, working with David McAllen,
Yeah,
and seeing if that's
that's my
feasible.
immediate thought, is like, we need to talk to David, and see if that's something that could be done.
Right.
I mean, I know there's a driver shortage, but again, you know, thinking about one night a week for 4 hours, one bus, seems like it's not a huge ask.
There might be 10-15% of the people that say, you know what, let me take the shuttle instead.
We have a month to work on, because I just got an email from Rick Abbott just now, so he's in New York City until the end of September, so,
Okay.
but there's a month.
So
Katie and I are actually meeting right now.
Oh, David Crop.
Oh, okay, you're talking about a different.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm talking about David Crop.
he's the director of transportation for the city.
Oh, okay. I was just on the mindset of Destination Oneonta.
Yeah, but I'm interested
But
to,
we
yeah,
can bring that up with him when we meet with him.
this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Alrighty, Main Street alleys. I'm going to update us on, I think you spoke with the city attorney.
Yeah, it's like super complicated. I think it has to be an initiative made by the people that own those buildings in order to clean those up, or I don't know, it's hugely complicated because the city is not going to want to accept liability for maintaining those alleyways.
Can we get a right away?
I don't know if it's as simple as that. I don't even think they would want it, I don't think the city would want it. An easement, is that what you mean?
A right away, so that we can have access to that property. There's no way we could touch anything without permission, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, because I even mentioned, do you think the city would, if they were granted the easement, would put up lights or, and he just said because of the liability that it would probably, so. I mean, I don't
What are you
know,
thinking, Katie?
yeah, what are you thinking?
Me first?
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
I mean, I think that done in other places very well. So when someone says the city wouldn't want that, but three of the people who are sitting on the city's council are sitting there saying that we want it, I'm a little bit hesitant to take that at face value. There undoubtedly is some risk, and I understand being cautious about that, but I think that there has to be, you know, we just talked about in our last meeting, right? Like, don't reinvent the wheel if someone else already has a wheel that you can borrow. So, you know, figuring out how those cities did it and how they mitigated those risks that, you know, are a totally valid concern, especially given, you know, what just happened there this summer. But to me, it's no different than any other street or sidewalk in the city. It would just become, you know, sort of additional, and not even city property, just additional public areas, right, yeah.
So
So,
liability all over the place.
oh, yeah,
We just did a public-private partnership with Springbrook for the arcade.
yeah,
So
yeah,
Right.
I know it's possible. I agree with you. That
yeah,
It might be just one small hurdle we have to get over, but
yeah.
if
I
there's
was
a question that then we're going to have to get the building owners, property owners, we're going to have to get their permission to, you know, improve their property, but, you know, that's a relative term. How you improve your property compared to me or Katie might be different and subjective, right? So I don't know how we come to terms of if we
I mean, one
paint
thing
the back of the building.
like my husband was thinking of doing is maybe applying for the OCI grant to just get a quote from an electrician, and then, you know, it means that you have to take on the expense of the electricity, the installation and all that, but maybe that could cover it, and then it could just set an example for other people to follow suit and just take the initiative on their own.
I mean, LED lights use whole.
Oh, yeah, it's big enough.
I mean,
I can also reach out, I've been, you know, all over New York State, it seems. And so I can reach out to some municipalities that know have strings of lights across the alleyway, and, you know, burned, you know, usages, but,
Cantonary lighting is what I learned from the Wenzel presentation. I was
So
like,
I can ask, what hurdles did you have, and how did you overcome them? And then also, I just showed us that's great.
that would be awesome.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
There was a concern though that, you know, like eligibility for that grant because it's going to a private,
If it's not putting money in your pocket,
yeah,
then that's not an issue.
okay.
I mean, it's, you know, 5 people, not me, on a committee, which I've really kind of butted heads with them a little bit on what they decided not to fund. But generally speaking, you know, it's certainly worth asking. I don't see where that's, you're not, in no way are you know, gaining profit from that. It's roots getting profit.
Yeah, no, it's just something to better the community. I think a lot of people would really like it. And someone from the Historical Society might also apply for the same kind of thing, but then there's like the middle building where you can get in touch with the, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to digress on that too much, but.
But I mean, I'll do some, you know, connecting with folks and find out what I can about this.
One thing I did want to bring up too is I saw a news article today about these big tech, like these like chip companies that are opening these, I think it was outside of Saratoga, one just opened. And they're like multi-million-dollar chip companies, and I guess there's all this government funding for them because the U.S. is trying to kind of increase our production of, you know, microchips and things like that, so we're not so reliant on other countries for it. How can we get a company like that to come to Oneonta?
We just, through Seagull Now and Schumer's office, we are in line for the RISE grant, which is, you know, a microchip funding, you know, grant. I don't know where that lands right now, but I know that we've gone through the whole hoop jumping.
Right.
Senator Schumer. He's watching Senator Schumer. You know, there was a press conference. We love that. There was a press conference. I don't know where that learns. I have a conversation I'm supposed to be having with Amanda Spellacy, I think on the other side of Liberty, in his office, and I can hopefully get maybe more information about where we landed with that. But that would be how it happened, would happen, I would imagine. I mean, that's where a lot of things are already placed to pay. This is a case of.
This is where Otsego now is really supposed to be at the forefront of all these conversations. So that is the primary purpose of being out there and marketing the property that we have available in Otsego County. That earlier is the largest property with the most infrastructure in Otsego County right now. Marketing there. So the frustration is there.
Yeah.
Why are we not attracting all kinds of small companies come to?
Or even big companies, I mean, this.
Well, you
Money
have to think
is-
of workforce development. That's the next part about all this. So when you look at your
Right.
downtown businesses, how many of them are asking for other employees? Do you have anybody that wants to work? It's continual, right, at restaurants, that they're looking for somebody to work. When you go to different businesses in Oneonta, they're still looking for employees to work. And so I'd rather start out with some small businesses and get that workforce development in order before we go and, land a large 1,000-employee company, because you can attract 1,000 people, but because we're finding out housing is a major issue.
Right.
So, if we get companies that are hiring 25 to 50, that's manageable for our infrastructure right now. I could be wrong, but we're going to house 25 to 50 families right now.
And the reality of it is that if you were to be successful in recruiting somebody into the community that was going to hire 100 people, and they couldn't find the housing for 100 new employees, they would wind up cannibalizing from our currently successful companies.
Right, right.
They would take IATA's employees, they would take customer electronics, they would take,
That's right.
they would poach.
And
So they would actually be hurting themselves.
You need a developer who's going to build housing in conjunction with that business to do it simultaneously.
You mentioned that. So I keep looking at parcels throughout the city of Oneonta and talk with local builders. Like, what stops you from buying that 5-acre parcel and putting up some single-family homes? And it's the infrastructure, right? So they don't have the millions of dollars to put in the water, sewer, work with NYSEG, get the gas and the electric there. And so, for me, my vision of economic development is, those are the kind of conversations we should be having, is how do we make that happen? How do we put it all together, working with city staff, to put those infrastructure pieces together, so then we can have local developers come in. I mean, there's all types of housing that we need. You can do tiny homes for the homeless, you can do small single family, you can do professional housing. We do have land available, but it's a matter of that stumbling block is infrastructure. If there's a developer, the big hill outside of West Oneonta, you can see it when you come down the end of Chestnut Street, you see that large, it's probably a 3,500, 4,000 square foot home sits on the hill. Do you know why that sits there by itself? Because a developer came to West Oneonta probably 10 years ago, and thought it was a no-brainer, build a house, had it all subdivided the property, and he'll connect to our water source. And the two organizations didn't get together to make that happen, so that development over there sits empty. So they need water sewer. We need more revenue. I say work with the town of Oneonta and get an agreement with them about the water and sewer, so we can sell more water. There's a 1 million gallon static water source tank right there by the campground that you just asked about. The city owns one. We just talked about it in finance. That's where we were talking about, to put a whole new tank. That would work for Kutztown All-Star Village. If they're expanding or need their own water source or a new water source, we could be there at the forefront. Infrastructure should be part of our conversation, at least for my point.
Yeah, and weirdly, it's part of the housing commission conversation, because the thing is, there are no silos, I mean, it's like,
No, it's
literally, that's interconnected. One of the things that, as long as I got council members here, I'm gonna put it out there, we have a liaison to the housing commission, that's you, Emily. We also have 7 work groups that are ad hoc. There are some of these work groups that I wonder if council members that happen to be interested in, the machinations and the charges of those work groups might want to sit in on, be a part of, and one of them is called Smart Growth, which specifically is talking about adjustments in thinking, both legislative, zoning, and even in terms of partnerships, with other municipalities and public-private, and that's not to overtask people, but I'd be inclined to say that any council member that looks at these work groups and thinks that that's something that they can sink their teeth into and wants to, I think it'd be a personal, I think you bring a lot to it. And second of all, I would.
So you have a schedule of when to meet?
No, that's the next step, is that the liaisons, who are actually the commission members, are reaching out to their groups and saying what's going to work for everybody.
Right.
The nice thing about it is because they're ad hoc, they don't need to be here.
Right.
They can be in somebody's backyard, as far as it goes. Or, as we've started to identify, 3 different places besides here where people can meet too, which is also good. We actually, at this point, have the Greta building where we can have people meet. So there's a lot of opportunity. But anyway, as long as you mentioned it, because you're kind of in sync with my own thinking as I've been working on the charges of these various work groups, that's exactly the kind of conversation that I would think. And then that marries up nicely with economic development. That marries up nicely with legislative, and then, pushing on with an actual action item to the common council. This is how we get things done now, is, make it happen someplace else and then funnel it with some pressure, up to the council.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't something I planned on putting out there, but as long as you mentioned it, I'd like to, kind of put that out for people to chew on yourself as well.
Yeah,
I think that's all I'd like to see the schedule and what the actual groups are, what they're charged with doing. Is that, I don't think I've seen that.
I have not
Yeah.
either. That was going to be my follow-up question too. It's like, where do we find that information?
Yeah, okay, I can get that to you.
So, I am picking up what you're putting down, and I agree with all of that. I think, my thought just goes back to someone who comes to our council meetings with her dirty water,
Mhm.
and all of the aging infrastructure that we have all over the city. So in terms of growth, right, like funding is finite, and I just don't know, I hesitate to, and by hesitate, I mean I will not support growing without first remediating things that need to be remediated with our existing infrastructure.
I don't see it as a binary choice. I don't.
And how do you fund that non-binary?
Well, the funding piece, I'm not smart enough to know, quite honestly. So, I think we need to look at what we're looking at, know what it is, and
I think it's a great goal,
And then-
we just don't have the money for it.
Right, but I think without my argument here and in other places is going to be, let's look at what the possibilities are and then figure out why we can't afford them, as opposed to saying we can't afford it, so let's not figure it out.
Well,
So not to get distracted too much. So that's why, when I pointing to the screen over there, because that's what I was looking at. And it was hard for me, with my bifocal contacts. The black line, remember we talking about the black line when we talk about water and sewer rates? That black line tells us when we get to do the move from reactive to proactive.
right,
I want to be proactive in infrastructure because our aging infrastructure, just what you said, it's 110 and older pipes in the ground that need to be replaced. So the folks that are up on Suncrest and Overlook and College, in the Fifth Ward, they're upset that they have that turbidity, that they're dealing with that, on an occasional basis. When I say that, it could be from daily to weekly. But at the same moment, building out our infrastructure can happen at the same time. Now, city staff is taking the approach of going out and going for those grants that we talked about last night in finance, to the tune of 13.2 million, whatever it was, between the two grants, to build out the water treatment plant, and then 6.5 or 6.9 for, like Suncrest Terrace in that area. I think all of those parts have to move at the same time. If you just concentrate on trying to get grant money for that, or bond for that, to solve the problem, which frankly, I think we need to have an engineer come in and tell us exactly what's wrong up there. I mean, Greg admitted that he's been dealing with this for half of his 10 years that he's been here, so. So that's where Shaq is in, so we've got 10 years that those folks have been pretty well.
Oh, I think she said longer than that.
She said that they had solved the problem, they went away for a while with that in-ground pump station where they recirculated the water, but now it's back because that pump broke and the city staff went in another direction.
It's only going to get worse too in the short term. I hate to say this, but we're currently about 6 feet below where we want to be with our reservoir. And we may need to go to, some constraint techniques which it's going to be impossible to justify fire hydrants discharging them to water when I'm asking the rest of the city to get a shower once every 3 days.
Well, I mean, right now, we're fortunate, but we only use 50% approximately of our water, and we don't even come close to 50% of our sewer treatment system. So we have 3 million gallons of water in the city going out, so we're not even getting 50% of that. So we do have quite a bit of static water source. But for the infrastructure cost, you're right, if we were to buy it and do it ourselves, it's a heavy price tag. It's a heavy price tag. But if you work with a developer and say, okay, we'll put down the pipes, but you'll pay us back when you sell that house. So whatever that linear footage is, we're going to get back on the infrastructure. It's no different than the way I understand the relationship between us and the town. So the infrastructure that's in there, we put the infrastructure in. That's why they pay, I think, 50% more than a city does for the water. So,
and we've had an advocate in the Seagull County Chamber of Commerce right now. He is actually an acronym, which is WISE, and that's exactly what it stands for. Does show this for the idea of building out and connecting water and sewer infrastructure so that development can happen. We are fighting a dual notion of competing notions of city sprawl versus keeping as much as we can within the context of our city footprint. Right? And so do we want suburbia? No. Are we in danger of having suburbia? I don't think so. So I think I don't think it's a light switch sort of scenario where we say now we're going to be assisting in partnership of an expansion of infrastructure, and now we're saying that we have become more of a suburban entity than a city specific entity. There's an argument that's made here in the conference at City Hall about that, and that's a conversation I think that's worth having as well. But again, as far as the Seagull County Chamber of Commerce is concerned, that's the drumbeat that Sean Lewis is engaged in right now. Is that idea of getting other municipalities, villages, towns, city of Oneonta working together to expand the water and sewer infrastructure and electrical, et cetera, in order to have something that's more sustaining and extended.
And to do that, you're going to have to create a water district and to get municipalities behind it. It's not that complicated, but it is not complicated. So, agenda items.
I had one for you. It's actually on the agenda.
Priorities?
Yeah, because there wasn't anything on the agenda
and it freaked me out. So I just want to share, well, it freaked me out. So I just want to share this with you and see if it helps just in, this is a very good meeting in my mind. So this is.
I think so too, I feel like you're starting somewhere.
But I feel like, the same as the community wellness committee is concerned, there was some value to them in early on defining, what that chart was. And so what I was looking at is a successful business district, and by that I don't necessarily just mean the full block footprint of Main Street, right? So, and this is not gospel, this is just my sense, but it's just in order to kind of keep, you guys to have this one thing you can kind of come back to for, as a focus. So we have the venue viability, not liability, but the venue viability, what I'm talking about, like the mall, is no longer a viable venue for a lot of businesses. Right? They have an expectation of being there at 10 a.m. and being there until 9 p.m. or something like that.
It's 7 now.
7 now.
But it is.
But the reason they modified is because it's become less and less a viable venue. There isn't foot traffic, there isn't promotion, there isn't, a lot of different things. So the venue viability of Chestnut Street, which is, that is, I think, quite honestly, there's a lot of potential on Chestnut Street that has not hit. Found itself in the fact that we're just losing, it looks like a catalog like that. Right.
What's the zoning on Chestnut Street?
It's C2
Yeah.
Okay.
for pretty much all of
The
it.
River Street, we're already starting to see it, the mouth of River Street by Main Street, now we start to see restaurants. We've got 3, maybe 4, three, I think, River Street.
Bella Michaels.
Bella Michaels, Captain Cook's, and then we've got the new one opening up.
Yeah, there's a kitchen opening up.
Yeah, so that, and that kind of thing breeds, success
So it's
stories
also
also.
River Street, I would consider.
I would consider River Street.
So that's
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
That's correct.
So business, right, so, and then East Main Street, social weeks, and the rest that are happening there, so, and obviously downtown. So you're looking at a couple of different things. You're looking at business stability. Are businesses stable, or are they on the ball? And how many, for some, that bubble is, I can't believe that some of them are still in business, as I know how at risk they've been.
Can I just interject here? I think this gives us a really great framework in terms of thinking about the city in these chunks.
Yes.
To be able to invite these business owners in to these meetings, one at a time, based on their area, to talk about how things are going out there.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm just looking to just give you a framework to make your lives, a little easier and keep this thing focused.
Trajectory.
So business stability, financial stability, what does that look like for them? Do they have succession planning? How many of these businesses are done when the owner says we're done?
Yeah.
Right? Expansion opportunities, can they? Do they have the physical footprint to be able to do it? Do they want to do it and they can't do it? Connection to resources, do they know where the resources even are that we have? One of the things that Judy, is rightly, upset about is the fact that not enough people taking advantage of local enterprise, grants, they don't even apply. And yet, can they use the $20,000-$30,000? Well, sure. Entrepreneurial support. We have 2 colleges. Are we doing anything? Should we be doing something to kind of engage the entrepreneurs that may be graduating to stay here and we'll work something out with you? You give us 3 years and we'll give you X, or whatever. Staffing, you were talking about this before, then. Everybody is dying of staffing. So I went up to Job Corps and I asked them about the work-based learning program. And they have at the ass end of the program now, which is crazy. So they graduate and then they get to do work-based learning. But staffing has to be figured out. And if staffing isn't figured out, I don't know what the answer is, but if staffing isn't figured out, we go nowhere. Workforce is everything, right? We're certainly not going to attract anybody good in the workforce. I mean, that'll help if we can recruit people and they recruit, bringing families, etc. But, and then market, customer connectivity. I mean, so we got, digital, something as simple as business hours. Don't close at 5 o'clock. You know? People work till 5.
Yeah.
If they work till 5 and you're closed,
100%.
I know.
It's Memorial Day. I'm closing. It's Memorial Day. It's a holiday. No, it's Memorial Day.
And the rest is off, they're gonna come and.
This is when they have time. It's not about Sundays.
Right.
Like, Sundays are a little, I think, underappreciated.
Right. So I'm not expecting you to solve this right now, but I just want to put some stuff out there. Competitive business services. Is the stuff that you're trying to sell anything that anybody has ever going to want? You know? I mean, or are you just committing yourself to failure? Are there 5 other people doing the same thing you are? You know? And outreach strategies. What the hell are they? Do you have any? You know? And then traffic, you know, are you hitting the locals? Are you hitting the colleges? Are you hitting the baseball families? We talked about the baseball families here. And access, you know, we want to be a pedestrian-friendly city, obviously, but not everybody's a pedestrian. Do you have a place you can put your damn car? You know? And is there someplace, are you convenient to walk to? I mean, are you know, so these are just, this is not the Bible. But I figure it gives you something that you can hang your hat on so that, you know, anything you should trust is going to make a difference.
What I think it's all gonna come back to, what can the city do to support these things legislatively?
And some of that may have to come back with actual action items for the legislative meets once every 3 meetings because they don't have agenda items. Right?
Yeah, we talk about that.
Yeah. So, you know, we need to make changes.
Well, it's like this committee, and I appreciate this because this is a proactive committee. No one from city staff is plunking stuff on our desk, like at finance. We always have agenda items. There will never be a time when we cancel because of lack of agenda items because the city chugs along. It's, you know, it's mechanical. It needs to happen. This is one, just like legislative, where it's internal. It's something where we need to propel it forward. You know, with agenda items with where we want to go. So I think it's a great start. And again, I think, you know, it all comes back to like, you know, these are all things that I think we want to solve, we want to go toward, but we also need to be mindful of like what our role is and how we can bring it back to like appropriate action at the city level.
And the last thing I'm going to say on the subject is, don't be afraid to engage ad hoc committees. You know, I mean, what was it, the environmental board was trying to deal with the deer issue, right? And so they kicked it over to the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee. And the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee had them there to a task force. All right, so there's a task force now for the deer. Yeah. And they are, we know that they have a very nice survey that they you know, met and they've had, I think, 3 meetings thus far. They're building out a fact-based strategy so that they can present something that's inarguable and then, you know, begin an education campaign and then eventually get to a place, I've given them a timeline, get to a place probably by December, where they provide the common council with an action plan. So I'm not doing it. No one here is doing it. But we got 12 people meeting, you know, so far they've met 3 times in the last month. So, you know, this doesn't have to be done by you guys. And I guess that's what I keep saying, is that I promised, you know, that I would engage as much of the community as I can and stuff. And we are better off if we do, because they'll get the work done. And also it's a lot more easily argued, you know, when we're talking about paid parking, or we're talking about whatever it may be, if the community's involved in that conversation.
Yeah, actually, can we talk about parking just for, I know we've gone just a little bit over, but just for like 5 minutes, because I think that, you know, when we talk about viability of these districts, parking being on there, I think that, you know, obviously this is something that we've talked about a little bit, is paid parking districts. It's been brought to me, and this is what we talked about before the beginning of the meeting, and to Emily, that, you know, employees of our downtown businesses specifically are getting tickets, and residents are getting tickets for being at work or for sleeping through the night, God forbid, do you know what I mean? So I think we need to really investigate maybe within our MU1 district, employee parking permits that can be supported by or validated by the business owners, residential permits that, you know, where do people go to get those? Maybe, you know, maybe it's the hall, maybe it's the police department, whatever, some sort of permit program in our MU1 for people who need to be parked long-term. You know, I think that that's something that's probably gonna end up going through the clip, and I know that the reaction is going to be, we're going to do a study, but I think realistically, we're 3 years out from any changes to our parking strategy, and people need change on that now. I think it's worth looking into it, doing it in the short term. If it changes in 3 years based on what we find from our study, then so be it, but like, we can't just tell people, oh well, for 3 years. So I think in terms of the viability of that district, right, we're talking about staffing being an issue. If I go to work and I make $15 an hour, and one of those hours I get a $20 parking ticket,
Yeah. No, exactly. And people, you know, if people are living in places downtown, like, and they need to park their car overnight or maybe for a couple days, you know, if they have to park it way out on like Center Street or something, like, I don't know, it's just very inconvenient, and it's also a quick way for the city to make revenue.
Totally.
People will pay for a residential parking permit or a workers' parking permit, you know? And I think it would be pretty easy to verify. All you have to do is just bring an electric bill and your address on it.
Would give us an opportunity not only to bring revenue, but to be proactive with our structure, right? So our parking structure, it's not clean. So if we were bringing in a revenue stream to the bottom line, that would give us an opportunity to put new lighting up.
Right.
Or at least lighting that always works, clean it, you know.
And the study,
We already have 3 of those. Right?
and the study,
Carry us through, yeah, we have 3 parking studies.
a study is the, honest to God, if in these next 3 years and 4 months, I can be the you know, the wall against studies. You know, if I could be a brick wall that says, thou shalt not pass with your study. Because the reality is, even if a study is really clear, specific, and incontrovertible, good luck selling that to the community. It has to be peer-driven. It has to be something that the community has been out there counting parking spaces in the middle. The community needs to be the one that determines that these are actually the baseline facts, and then from there the education process starts. Outside of that, we can spend as much money as we can find on studies, and they will be an exercise that will entertain and you know, maybe even the council will agree on, and the community will not.
Totally. So, I mean, I think that's something that, you know, I guess I would like to get on the click agenda. But, you know, I know that the plan in terms of parking is to engage in a study, so maybe we could get those parking studies. Thank you. Just in our hot and all hands, you know what I mean, so that we can all kind of see that maybe this doesn't.
One thing, what's it?
I think so for next month, we're going to talk about parking.
Okay, cool.
And I'd love to just see it get rolling, like, you know, yeah, without, I mean, yeah, we can look at the studies, but it's pretty apparent. I mean, I've talked to many people that have, you know, an issue with they're getting ticketed while they're at work, or they have no place close to park.
And there's two different things going on with that. There's the idea that people cannot park without getting, I had staff that would get overnight, you know, tickets because they're sleeping, you know, and we shouldn't move the car. But it all feeds into the larger narrative, which is not an accurate narrative, if there's no parking. So I'm having headaches with parking, I'm getting tickets with parking, so there's no parking. And the reality of it is that there are 2 different things going on. There's where can you park and not get a ticket, and do we have enough parking?
In my mind, I feel like there is enough parking currently.
It's not?
I think there is, but I think that, I mean, I just see that, like, it's all very short term.
Yeah.
And if we are, I mean, when these Deed Street lofts open up and we have 64 units and there's people that are gonna move into the Springbrook apartments, like, where, you can't have all these people moving their car every 4 hours.
Right.
You know, no one's gonna, you know,
We have to
these
be
might,
proactive.
and these might be people, like my friend that just got the ticket, she works remotely, she works from home. She needs to have a car in case she needs to go to an appointment out somewhere else to see a client or whatever, but for the most part, she just needs a place to keep her car. You know, and I don't know where she's gonna put it, you know, she's gonna have to move it all the time. You know, which is a thing in cities that happens, you know, I mean, live in cities, you know, that is a thing.
We have an opportunity to have a city-owned parking garage that we can take the bottom level
Yeah, and
and
I,
turn it over to long-term parking via permits.
and I think the community would really appreciate
Most
it.
business, most other building owners would jump at that too, because in order to rent, people are gonna have problems.
Is that something this committee wants to work on?
I should tell you that I'm putting together, with big surprise, and I parking committee, I just was waiting on somebody to review my list of names before I reached out to people.
Well, why don't you do that, and in the meantime, the three of us will start working on the bottom level of the parking for the permits. Keith, when we got on council, you brought that up. I
Yeah.
think I remember you initially talking about parking permits, some about Schenectady.
Yes.
So what are some, before we just leave it, and it's like, okay, we'll continue to work on this, can we just like come up with a couple things, like maybe something I can do over the next month, like, if we're gonna talk about parking, and let's focus on parking, and I love the idea of the only on the Thursdays, kind of a Thursday night, right?
I think for parking, we need to figure out the mechanism for, like, verification and issuance. So does that happen at City Hall? Does that happen at the police department? Is there a way that, I know that the thing that I hesitate, and it's everything, anytime we add something new is, like, people are already pretty overworked. So being realistic about what that's going to take on a daily basis.
And Greg's gonna have some thoughts on that.
No, I understand.
Right.
Karen, you want to talk about it or not? Meaning you're the city clerk, so
As far as.
the permits are going to go through you guys.
That's what I'm saying.
They're going to go through our office. Dog licenses, marriage licenses, all licenses.
But again, Greg's gonna have, because he's been doing the work on the research on this, so it's probably appropriate that at that meeting, you know, so what's your strategy, how do you deal with this?
Yeah. But I think for me, that's the biggest thing that we'll need to figure out. And then also, how do we, well, yeah, how do we maybe, well, okay, now I'm thinking about this in real time, I'm really sorry. But, you know, I'm trying to think, okay, so we do it in the MB1 district. I don't think it's necessary that we sign it necessarily, like, if the police know, or if the person who issues the parking tickets regularly knows that and will the resident sticker within these parameters, you know, because they're very good about that, versus somebody who, you know, is violating parking outside of that, and they may have the sticker, but they're outside the district. So I think that would be criteria, you know, but that's really for the police department, and then again, like, people with the stickers, understanding where to park, maybe it's as simple as handing them a photocopy of a map of like, this is where this grants you.
So just to catch up with you, you moved outside of the parking garage and you're now into the other city blocks, trying to.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about different things,
A permit
sorry.
process for residents that are tenants that have on-street parking.
Right. Or in municipal lots to be able to, I think maybe just municipal lots rather than the streets, and not just residents, but also people who work.
Right, and not to confuse the situation, but in your ward, you have a lot that's vacant that could be used for parking for this very reason.
Where?
It's right around the corner from your house. It's down the street from you.
There's
Oh, no. There's no vacant lot.
We're putting a six-story building in that spot.
You are.
There's a vacant lot in
There's a
the
vacant lot,
ward.
been vacant for years and years and years. And it'd be a perfect opportunity for off-street parking.
Which street is it on?
His street.
On Cherry?
On the downhill side of Cherry.
Oh, that's not
On the
a,
north side of Cherry.
That's not the road?
no,
Yeah, it's the 7th ward, I think.
yeah. I'm on the east
I
side
thought you
of,
guys split this.
east side of
Yeah, we
church.
split Cherry Street when it crosses west. Well, actually, we too.
So then Cherry,
So it's
8th ward.
8th ward,
Yes.
yeah, if it's on this side.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're on both sides of Cherry from West Street to Clinton, but you're on just the one side of
sorry,
Cherry.
I thought it was your district.
It's okay. That's why I was confused. I was like, I can pretty much imagine that. I'm pretty sure.
on both sides of Cherry. Like,
No.
no.
Is that the land bank house? Is that the land bank property? Yeah, it is.
I can look it up.
We,
8 Cherry? Habitat for Humanity owns that. And they're gonna build a house.
Yeah, that's probably about right. Yeah, about 8.
100%,
Okay.
yeah.
we don't really want to.
Yeah, no, what a random place for a parking lot. But anyway,
We're gonna talk.
we'll talk about it. We got a lot to talk about.
I also want to keep the alleyways on.
I agree.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk
And Mark-
about
Mark had a
I'm sure
lot
Mark
for the
and
alleyways.
this committee. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think for like the Thursday night thing, it would just be, maybe we can set up a task force committee and be like, the city, you know.
We can do business owners to kind of buy into promoting themselves. kind of keep it together.
And then there's a sense of pride in like, we're organizing this cool, like this cool thing that's happening where, like, I love the idea of samples or, you know, having like a wine tasting or having an activity like on a Thursday night, you know, a rock painting.
Yeah, that was in the plan of that, so yeah.
I mean, could that be an ad hoc subcommittee task force of this committee
It would be.
based on
It would be.
business owners? Okay, I wasn't sure that
We're
that
going to go to
was
this
related
meeting,
on.
so business owners that might be interested in being on this committee.
Cool. That sounds great.
Okay.
Okay.
Nothing else, we'll call it at 6:30.